to She Plays the Podcast. I am super excited to have Cassidy Lichtman here today. Cassidy, a professional volleyball player, member of Athletes Unlimited's player executive committee and board of directors, and director of volleyball for Athletes Unlimited. So big deal there. Excited to chat about all that. Also a nonprofit founder of Path, which focuses on using sports as a vehicle to teach skills around empathy, equity, and empowerment. Cassidy, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so excited. So, director of volleyball, new gig, right? Tell me how that came to be.
Yeah, so I played in the first two seasons of Athletes Unlimited Volleyball. Had kind of come out of retirement to play, and there were two incredible seasons. And we got to the end of the second one, and I was like, okay, like what's next? Like, how is this going to grow? How is we've created this new thing now? Like, how do we make it sustainable? What are the next steps? And this, director of sport role was becoming full-time. It had been a part-time position before. And John Patricoff, our CEO, said, what do you think about it? And at first I was a little resistant, honestly. I wasn't sure if I wanted to work in volleyball. It wasn't necessarily my plan, but it's just, I think there's a really big shift happening in the sport right now. And I love Athletes Unlimited so much. And I love our leadership. And so it really felt like kind of a seamless transition and just an organization that I wanted to keep being a part of.
Yeah, I mean, we're big fans of Athletes Unlimited over here. It's just amazing what they've built and how they've changed the sports landscape in the US. It's awesome. Well, congrats to that. I am curious, you mentioned retiring, coming out of retirement. What is the process like that first go around when you're like, okay, I'm going to retire from my sport? How difficult, like what was that experience for you?
I was playing on the national team and professionally overseas. So kind of juggling that, like half of the year here, half of the year in other countries. And I loved it. It was incredible. You're just literally living out your dreams. But it just felt like, the national team does kind of have natural checkpoints every 4 years of, do I want to continue doing this? And it just felt like in 2016, when I retired, I was like, okay, I've gotten to the point that I wanted to get to, which is like, I wanted to figure out how good I could be at this sport. And, you can always get a little bit better, but I had reached essentially my potential. And that was really my goal, was just to figure out, the highest level I could possibly play at and go for it. And it just felt like it was time. And so I really was kind of like at peace with the decision, and ended up kind of going back to Stanford to coach for one season, which was a nice little off ramp from it, because I was still involved, but not, really playing, and then transitioned into kind of life after, being a professional volleyball player, or so I thought, until AU came up and all of a sudden I was back in it. But yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of athletes struggle with that transition and kind of like, who am I now? And I think a lot of people along the way who, encouraged me and to think of myself as not just an athlete. So I felt like I was kind of prepared for that next step outside of sport.
That's awesome. That is something that hopefully, younger people who are professional athletes are hearing and getting that feedback of, this isn't your whole life. This is maybe a big part of it, your job, but it doesn't define you. That's huge for that transition. So then you hear about Athletes Unlimited. It's going to be, a more local, it's within the country. Yeah. What was that like to be like, okay, I'm gonna go do this? Tell us about that process.
Yeah, I think it was two things really. One, my teammate from the national team, Jordan Larson, called me and said, hey, there's this new pro league starting. And I was like, okay, sure there is. There's always sort of a quote unquote new pro league starting, and it's never really been real. But, she was a multiple-time Olympian, and there were some real people involved. And so I said, okay, I'll at least, listen to the pitch. And then I got my presentation with John Patricoff, and he sort of laid out what the league was and how it was different and kind of the business model. And I thought, okay, I think this is real. And I think it's different enough that it could work. And if it is real, I want to be a part of helping to build it. So that was part of it. And the other part was just that, I had a whole other life going. I was working on a path at the time, and it's only a 6-week season, so I could do both. And there's a real sort of commitment to civic leadership and supporting our athletes off the court or field. And when they explained that kind of pillar of Athletes Unlimited to me, I was like, okay, I think this is really values aligned too. So yeah, I felt like it went along with sort of the work I was doing enough that I could kind of justify going back to work out again. But then also like I wanted to be able to kind of build that thing for the next generation that my generation didn't have.
Yeah, because like you mentioned, you played different places around the world. I think was it like 5 different countries you played club in?
Yes, I was in Poland, Switzerland, Azerbaijan, France, and China.
Yeah, and so much like professional basketball players, like they make most of their money in non-US leagues, right? So it's exciting to have a home base option now for players. For those who are listening and haven't checked out Athletes Unlimited, please do. But the really like one of the most unique things is that yeah, it might be a 6-week season, but you're not just on one team, right? So you score points throughout the week, and then there's a draft every week. Four captains get to pick their teams. How was it playing in that kind of format? And did it take people a little bit to get used to it? Because you're not like gelling as a team so much, but you're getting to meet and play with lots of people. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, I've loved it. I mean, you just rarely get to this point in your career and get kind of a new challenge to
Mm.
figure out and deal with. You're kind of doing the same thing over and over again. And so this was exciting just to have to adapt to something new. And so some people get it right away, and some people it takes a little bit longer. I think it was, I want to say a little bit easier than I thought. Like, we're all high level volleyball players. So at the end of the day, like if you put us all on the court together, we'll figure it out. Probably more difficult for some positions than others, just with like a connection between a setter and a middle, for example. But in the end, like you figure out who you mesh with best, and that's part of the draft process is figuring out, who do you want on your team, both from like can they get a kill, but also, is this the right person to be next to me on the court? And sometimes teams get out there and on paper you're like, this is going to be, a stacked team, they're going to win everything, and they lose everything, and vice versa. Some teams have great chemistry, but I've genuinely had, some of my teams at Athletes Unlimited have been some of my favorite teams I've ever been on, and they only lasted 6 days. But I'm going to remember those teams and how it felt to play with them, forever.
That's awesome. And I love what you said. Like, yeah, it is kind of a challenge. As you said, later on in your career, sometimes you're not challenged as much. And so this is something new. And who doesn't love a draft night, right? Like, I mean, for fantasy sports like we have, that's the best part.
Yeah.
And so yeah, to get to do that week after week is pretty fun and special. So what's coming up for this year in volleyball? I know the season has had a date change, but what else can we look forward to this year?
Yeah, it's super exciting time. So we changed our season to the fall, and part of that was broadcast. We signed a deal with ESPN. So our softball and lacrosse leagues were already with ESPN, so we're the third league to join. So we'll be in October and November on those platforms, and then because we were moving to the fall, we wanted to, still do something this spring. So we're about to go out on an exhibition tour with one of our teams. We're going to go play 9 different colleges and at a couple of the major youth tournaments. And it was really just to go kind of meet the volleyball audience where it is. There's secretly a giant audience for volleyball in the US. Yeah. It's a huge sport, and but mostly at the collegiate and youth levels right now, because we haven't had pro in a very long time until Athletes Unlimited. So we're going to go to some of those big markets for college, and to some of the like really giant youth tournaments, and play in the middle of 10,000 screaming girls. And so I'm super excited about it, just to introduce them to the concept of professional volleyball and let them know like you can watch your favorite players, after they graduate. And we're bringing some alums back to those schools, which is exciting.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I mean, I know it's played on location, so it's conducive to a shorter season, and this might be information we're not privy to. Is there any chat about doing an extended, like longer, or having like 2 seasons potentially to get like more volleyball? But I get the challenges of that too.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Like we've done it, we've expanded in a few different ways. The exhibition tour is one way. Our softball league has a second season right now at UX. So that's one model within kind of the Athletes Unlimited universe. And we could see more of that, in different sports. There's also a couple other professional leagues in development for volleyball. So right now we're trying to be sort of complementary to each other, the same way we are with the WNBA. So some of it depends on how those develop. But, I think at Athletes Unlimited, like all options are kind of on the table. We're always looking at sort of the calendar and our athlete needs. And,
Mm.
for example, like for basketball, maybe it doesn't make sense to do another season because W exists. But for volleyball, it might. So it's just going to depend on, I think, how the volleyball kind of ecosystem develops over the next couple of years. And but we're always looking for new opportunities to get out there.
Yeah, well, and I mean the college tour and youth tournament. I mean, that's a genius idea. I think it's so fun. I mean, that is it's such a fun sport to watch. It's like so nail biting. And you just kind of, I don't know, I was always too much of a wimp to play it. It like hurt my arms, but I loved watching it. And it would just be like, oh my gosh, I can't even watch this person serving for like set point. It's just such a fun sport to watch. So yeah, we'll be sure to share that schedule for the tour that you're doing. Because that's awesome. Yeah, would you tell us a little bit too about Path and how you got started on that and anything coming up for that?
Yeah. So, Path, after I finished kind of playing and coaching the first time around, I went and took a job in DC working for this woman named Megan Smith, who is the former chief technology officer of the United States. And she started a company called Shift 7 that did all kinds of different projects, but all sort of focused around economic inequality and inclusion. And her theory kind of being, if we included everybody, we could solve all the problems. Like there's 7 billion people in the world, almost 8 now. And so Path was really born of like, how do we kind of address the cultural issues around how we teach certain people that they belong and certain people that they don't, and the skills that we really need to like be successful human beings, both kind of for ourselves, but also, for the people around us. And sport felt like a really natural place to address that. I always thought as an athlete, like I have 2 jobs, like I need to bring my best and help the person next to me bring theirs. And if everybody in the world did that, we'd be in a pretty good place. And so what Path does is we create short form content featuring elite athletes and coaches from across, professional sports, college, the Olympics, people like Nneka Ogwumike and Steve Kerr and Apollo Ono and all kinds of great kind of ambassadors, and let them sort of break down some of these lessons around those kind of human skills, around things like empathy and empowerment, et cetera, into kind of short bites, like tangible pieces that kids can understand, and helps them really draw a line like to their own lives. And then we have sort of the questions and actions afterwards. Okay, how do I take this lesson and to really put it into place and implement it like right now as they go into this practice, or when I go to math class tomorrow. So that's we have a whole library up. It's on pathsports.org. And so teachers and coaches kind of use that with their kids to prompt discussion and learning like intentionally around those skills. And the big project we're working on right now is with a few schools to look at kind of the athletic side of campus and how do we structure sort of an actual curriculum, like a light lift for coaches, but really kind of intentionally teaching these skills that we've always said that sports teach, but have rarely kind of put any structure around.
Oh, that's so good. So good. Well, and like, yeah, there's humans involved in this space. And so you're always going to like, I mean, I think there was a news article recently of a coach just like, what did you say to your play? It's just wild. So that's so helpful, so powerful. Yeah, even for coaches in middle school and high school to just start, allowing their students to know, because I think you're right. Sports is such a connector and for a lot of ways to, once you're there on the court or on the pitch, it's an equalizer. It's really just like, what's your skill set? So that's amazing. That's really incredible. So we'll be sure to put that in the show notes for the link to go check it out. And yeah, what's one of your, like, maybe you can't even choose one, but like, is there one that's really stuck out to you recently? A video or teaching?
Yeah, I mean, I love all of them. One of my favorites is Nneka Ogwumike. I think it's called Everyone Has a Story. And she's just talking about, a little bit about her own life and like being a Nigerian American, but also kind of what's like the importance of allowing everybody on your team to kind of have their space and to share their story and their skills. and sort of accepting them for that and like lifting up the voices of the people around you, which I think is such a great, and she ties it directly into, being a great teammate and like how you kind of build team chemistry and everything. And it's just such a great lesson to me, A, on a team, but then B, outside of that, like if you can accept the person next to you because they're your point guard, like can you also accept the kid next to you in the cafeteria, or the person you run into at the grocery store, and allow them to kind of be all that they are, and then notice like when we're not allowing people to do that and help kind of lift up those voices that are given the least space. And Nneka does a really good job of kind of illustrating that and bringing it back into sport, but making it really clear that it's not only about sport.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's really awesome. Cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, such important work, right? Um so what a great resource for people to have. So please go check out Path. That's awesome. Yeah, and what are the dates? Sorry I didn't highlight this, but what are the dates for the tour that you guys are doing with AU volleyball?
Sure. So our first match will be at Ohio State on March 25th, and then we'll end at Penn State on April 21st. So it's 4 straight weeks on the road, 11 matches. We're just about to announce the broadcast schedule, so you'll be able to see some of them, streaming, and at least one on TV, depending on what package you have to watch TV, into the different college networks. But yeah, we're super excited about it. Like I said, we're going to bring back some alums from these schools. Penn State's our last match. We're bringing back Alicia Glass-Childress and Deja McClendon, both who won multiple national championships, and Alicia went on the Olympics. So I think that's going to be super fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll put that schedule in the show notes, and yeah, update it when the broadcast comes out. That's so awesome. It's so exciting. Yeah, just thanks again for being here. I do love to do like a couple rapid fire questions at the end, if that's okay.
Great.
Just like some fun. Okay, so what's been your favorite place that you've ever played a volleyball match, like court or country, whatever the case may be?
Well, I'll give you two. So, I mean, the gym at Stanford is obviously like that's home,
Mhm.
Maples Pavilion, but maybe, maybe in Hawaii, honestly, like playing for the national team, we got to play an exhibition in Hawaii, and we rarely get to play in the US, as professionals until now. So
Mhm.
that was, one of the only experiences where we were in a gym with 10,000 people. They're all chanting USA, like they're all actually rooting for us. Usually we're in, another country like Brazil, and they're all rooting against
Right.
us,
Oh,
or
sure.
China or somewhere. And so to have kind of the whole gym there, on our side, I think that was really cool. And they're just great volleyball fans there.
That's true. You don't think about where you play. Yeah, that you're the away
Yeah, we're
team. You
usually
know,
being booed when the USA
yeah.
starts.
Oh, that would be a great experience. Who was your favorite player that you looked up to when you were younger?
When I was a kid, honestly, like some of the players who were ahead of me at my high school, Stephanie Saragosa, who went on to play at Arizona. There was a group of girls who were a few years ahead of me in club that were they were so good and so good as a team. And then, Karj Karai, honestly, like I used to watch him play on the beach, Misty May and Carrie Walsh. And then as I got older and was playing, with them, like Faluka Akinoradowo, who I got to play with at Stanford and then on the national team, like she was fantastic. But yeah, I didn't get to watch a lot of them play professionally because it didn't happen in the US. So once every 4 years, I got to watch the Olympics and like be a fan of those
Mhm.
women.
Yeah. Well, and true. Like that's really cool. Your local inspiration too. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What was your sweetest victory that you ever had?
I mean, there have been a bunch. The one that always comes to mind is Final Four when I was at Stanford my sophomore year. We were playing Texas in the semifinal at Nebraska. It was, that night I think was at the time the most people to ever watch a volleyball match in the US. It was around 17,000. They've broken the record since then, which is great. But we went down 0-2, and I was a sophomore starting setter. It was probably like the least experienced setter ever in the history of the Final Four. And we come back and we win the third set like pretty easily, barely won the fourth. I think we went down like 6-3 or something in the fifth, so in a game to 15. We come back and we win 16-14 to go to the national championship. And it was the first time a team had ever come back down from down 0-2 in the Final Four. So that one was, I mean, just that crowd, like playing Texas. We had, you know, half the future national team on our side. They had a couple, you know, future Olympians on theirs, and that was a really, really fun game.
That is awesome. Oh, I'm getting chill bumps just thinking about, again, the nail bitingness of this sport is
Yeah.
just insane. I'm sure your families and the fans are just going nuts. Yeah, if you just a couple more questions. If you could be elite in any other sport, what sport would you like to?
Oh, I mean, basketball will be super fun. Obviously, they're kind of like our sister sport. The other tall women. They also get like a little bit more notoriety than we do at the moment until volleyball grows a little bit. I always really wanted, like, I was never going to be a gymnast, even though, because I'm 6 feet tall, which my dad made clear to me when I was little. I was watching the and I was like, they're flipping, like, that looks awesome. Like, they're flipping all over the place. Like, I want to do that. And he was like, no, you are not going to have the body. But yeah, I just want to like be able to do a backflip. That'd be fun.
Love that. Love that. Okay. Then the last question I asked everyone, if you could get tickets for life, you get free tickets for life for any sporting event, you get them every time the sporting event happens, whether it's, you know, every 4 years an Olympics or every year a national championship. What are you getting free tickets for life for?
I mean, well, I better get free tickets for life to Athletes Unlimited. So if I'm
Oh yeah, that's a given. That's a given.
I'm already getting that. Yeah, I think it's got to be the Olympics. I mean, there's nothing like it. Just a worldwide competition of, you know, the best of the best. And the fact that it's every 4 years, like, really makes a difference. You know, when it's so hard. We always talk about the national team, like, you spend 4 years and it gets down to like the last 2 hours at the end of the last 2 weeks, and that's the gold medal match, and you win it or you don't. And you know, and then if you don't, you have to get all the way back, like back there 4 years later. So there's just a lot. I think you know, there's nothing else that has that kind of pressure on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, thank you again so much for taking the time to be here. Where can folks find you and Athletes Unlimited online?
Yeah, you can find me on kind of any social media at Cassidy Lichtman, or at Cassidy Lichtman 7, I think, on Instagram. And you can find Athletes Unlimited at AU Pro Sports on any social media. And our Instagrams also have you know, different ones for each sport. So you can find at AU Pro Volleyball if you want. And auprosports.com has all the info on schedules and our leaderboard. Our basketball league is going on right now, so you should watch that for sure. They're awesome. And you can find Path at pathsports.org.
Awesome. We will put all of that in the show notes. Really easy. Anyone listening to go click and follow and get tickets or whatnot. So thank you again so much for joining. And yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you.